Guys, welcome to Better Bachelor. This is Joker with a face for radio and a voice for print. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about a woman that was really bad to her husband. Now, she didn't cheat. She didn't do anything that was, vow breaking, but she was treating him much like a big man child. She even said at one point, like, I'm treating him like one of my kids that I'm scolding. And this isn't a story to make fun of the woman, because that's easy to do. The easy takeaway is, well, she was a horrible person. All right, let's move on. But the story here is about men and how much good men, supportive men, loving men put up with to try to make the person that they love happy. And it resonated with me a little bit because when I was married, probably by year 3 or 4, little things like this used to pop up a little bit, would start occurring. And as time went on, they would continue. And I would say something about it, but not I probably didn't put my foot down as hard as I should have. And I shouldn't have, my boundaries were a little soft. And so I didn't step up and say anything. And at one point I finally did. And I didn't do it in a rage way. I just went, hey, when you do this, well, it continued on, and eventually that led to the end of my marriage. But here, this guy hung in with it, and I think they're still together. And she said that she did it for 12 years. Now, this poor guy, he may have, by the end of it, may have just been at his wit's end. But I want to read this article to see if this resonates with some of you guys. And you say, that is me, that was me, I did these things, and this is exactly how I felt. So let's get recording, and we'll talk about this a little bit. So this is from the Federalist, and it says, a woman realizing she's been accidentally being bad to her husband this whole time. And it says, this is an honest, open story from a young woman about her marriage. There are some powerful truths spoken here worthy of notice and reflection. If you're married, ever have been married, or plan on getting married, eventually this is for you. And again, I think there's actually some good information here, because a lot of times, whether it's a guy or a woman, in this case a woman, we don't see how poorly we're treating the people in our lives. And then when they say, that's it, I'm out, I'm done, and you look back, you go, oh, I should have known. Now, most of us guys here are here not because we are this guy. We're here because, let me correct that. We're here because we were this guy, but many of us aren't here because we were the bad person. Because otherwise we'd probably be out there trying to get into relationships. Usually most of us are on the ones on the receiving end of this. So it says, my aha moment happened because of a package of hamburger meat. I asked my husband to stop by the store to pick up a few things for dinner, and when he got home, he plopped the bag on the counter. I started pulling things out of the bag and realized he'd gotten the 70-30 hamburger meat, which means it's 70% lean and 30% fat. She said, I asked, what's this? He said, hamburger meat. And she said, you didn't get the right kind. He said, I didn't. And he replied with a brow furrowed. Was there some other brand you wanted or something? No, you're missing the point. I said, you got the 70-30. I always get at least the 80-20. He laughed. Oh, that's all? I thought I'd messed up or something. That's how it started. And again, we can all see it's no big deal. I just grabbed the wrong one, didn't know you wanted it. Next time, I'll grab the 80-20. But you didn't say specifically anything, and I didn't know, so I just grabbed the cheapest one or the one closest to the front of the rack, or I wasn't paying attention. She continues on. That's how it all started. I launched into him. I berated him for not being smarter. Why would he not get the more healthy option? Did he even read the labels? Why can't I trust him? Do I need to spell out every little thing for him in minute details so he gets it right? Also, and the thing I was probably most offended by, was why wasn't he more observant? How could he not have noticed over the years what I always get? Does he not pay attention to anything I do? Now, we can be very critical. Now, she's writing everything that ran through her mind. Obviously, she didn't say all these things to her. But this is the culmination. This is what happens when you don't have good communication between people. This can happen between friends. This can happen in a relationship. But oftentimes, you let something build up. And I was in a relationship where one time she got mad at me for chewing too loudly. And this was with my mouth closed. Like I would take a bite of a chip, and just me chewing, me breathing, me being in the same existence as her was driving her crazy. Now, obviously, we didn't last but maybe another day or two after that when she yelled at me for chewing too loudly. And it was, but you see the point where you just say, I do not understand. Why are you so upset with me? I have done nothing. I'm not going to read everything she did bad to him. I'll at some point here jump to the summary. But I want to kind of lay this out there because, again, a lot of us don't understand what it is or what a guy has done wrong in a relationship. And then when it blows up and it goes crazy, guys are like, what is going on? Or they break up with you or they cheat on you or something like that. And men just go, I don't understand. As he sat there bearing the brunt of my righteous indignation and muttering responses like, I never noticed, I really didn't think it's that big of a deal, and I'll get it right next time, I saw his face gradually take on an expression that I'd seen in a lot of recent years. It was a combination of resignation and demoralization. He looked eerily like our son does when he gets chastised, and that's when it hit me. Why am I doing this? I'm not his mom. I suddenly felt terrible and embarrassed for myself. He was right. It really wasn't anything to get bent out of shape over. And there I was just doing that over a silly package of hamburger meat that he dutifully picked up from the grocery store just like I asked. If I had specific requirements, I should have been clearer. I didn't know how to gracefully extract myself from the conversation without coming across like I had some kind of split personality. So I just mumbled something like, yeah, I guess we'll do with this. I'm going to start dinner. He seemed relieved it was over, and he left the kitchen. Again, it's not a big deal. And I find I don't get, men tend to be logical, women tend to be emotional, which is why it's one of those things where men can logically say, if this was important, you should have said so, or we'll just fix it next time. But women, because they often are more emotional, they let things build up and then they spill over. Not always, but it does happen a lot, at least in many of my relationships. And then I sat there and thought long and hard about what I'd just done and what I'd been doing to him for years, probably. The hamburger meat moment, as I've come to call it, certainly wasn't the first time. I scolded him for not doing something the way I thought it should be done. He was always putting something away in the wrong place, or leaving something out, or neglecting to do something altogether. And I was always right there to point it out to him. Why do I do that? How does it benefit me to constantly belittle my husband, the man I've taken as partner in my life, the father of my children, the guy I want to have side by side as I grow old? Why do I do what women are so often accused of? They're missing a comma there. And try to change the way he does every little thing. Do I feel like I'm accomplishing something? Clearly not, if I feel I have to keep doing it. Why do I think it's reasonable to expect him to remember everything I want and do it just that way? The instances in which he does something differently doesn't mean he's wrong. When did my way become the only way? When did it become okay to constantly correct him and lecture him and point out every little thing I didn't like as if he were making some kind of mistake? I'm not a psychologist, but I can tell you this much, that I think in many cases, we all have stresses in lives. And this isn't to say men are any different than women in this case, because there are men that will do this to women as well. I think one of the things that I always noticed in almost every relationship or even every friendship that I've had with women is that I always felt like I had to be the entertainer. I had to be the ones supplying attention. It was, if I was enjoying, I get my free time, I'm tinkering out on the motorcycle, I'm building something on the bus, I'll just build something, furniture. I built my big dining room table that I had in my old house. I'd find something to do. I never, ever in my life have walked up to a woman and said, so what do you want to do? Let's do something. I want to do something. I don't know what I want to do. You pick something to do. Entertain me. Dance for me, jester. I never did that. If I was bored, I'd find something to do. But in almost every relationship I've had, the women, when I'm doing my own thing or whatever I'm up to, would come over. Well, I'm bored. Okay. And well, let's go do something. Let's go do something. What do you want to do? I don't know. I just want to get out of the house. Okay, but I'm like, there's part of you that's saying, well, I'm enjoying what I'm doing. Why do I have to stop my enjoyment to now include you? And I don't think this is being selfish on the guy's side. I do think it's selfish when a woman's like, I'm bored and I don't know what I want to do. You think of something and take me to go do it. But I know many of you can say, oh yeah, that's happened a lot. And the same thing, it sounds, as what she's doing here is like, this isn't going the way I want it to. I'm unhappy. I'm bored. I'm upset. He didn't do this right. Well, it's got to be his fault. And why she's doing this, I have no idea. But I think in relationships, when that comes about, there can be a lot of resentment. And if you don't discuss it, there's going to be problems. Let me jump ahead just a little bit because she gives another example. Okay, she says, let's look at these offensive. A broken glass, a pair of blue tube socks, both common mistakes that anyone could have made. I'll leave the link below if you want to read the whole story, but you kind of get it. She's basically complaining about him for everything. But he was right. Regardless, the glass, I not only pointed out his clumsiness for breaking it, but also due to the shard I found and his sad attempt at cleaning it up. He tried to clean up some glass. He dropped a glass. He didn't want to tell her because she'd be mad. So he cleaned it up and threw it away without telling her, and she found a little piece of it. And so she said he was clumsy for breaking it, and also due to the shard I found and his sad attempt at cleaning it up, because he missed a piece. As for the socks, even though he clearly stated it was an accident, I gave him a verbal lesson about making sure he pays more attention when he's sorting clothes. Whenever any issues like this arise, he'll sit there and take it for a little bit, but always responds in the end with something like, I guess it just doesn't matter that much to me. Now I know what he means. I now know what he means is the thing that has you so upset is a small detail or a matter of opinion or a preference, and I don't see why you're making it such a big deal. But from my end, I came to interpret it over time is that he didn't care about my happiness or trying to do the things the way I think they should be done. I came to view it like this guy just doesn't get it. I'm clearly the brains of the operation. And I did a video on this. I've done a couple of them actually about how men are treated poor, or when you watch TV, the dads like Homer Simpson, or when you watch Family Guy and Peter Griffin, they're dummies. It's like the women are the smart ones, and Peter's always doing something dumb, or Homer's always doing something dumb. They've been on TV. The Homers have been on TV for almost 30 seasons now. And there's more and more men that are in relationships. And I could come up with so many different TV shows. I won't bother. But same thing about the commercials. Same thing about all these movies where the women are now strong and kicking the tail out of all the bad guys. And the guys are like, oh, thank goodness you're here. I don't know what I'm doing. So she actually gets into this, and I want to cover that here. But it's nice to hear it coming from a woman rather than me saying, hey, here's what I noticed. Do you guys agree? Here's a woman actually saying what we've all said before. I started thinking about what I'd observed with my friends' relationships and the things my girlfriends would complain about regarding their husbands, and I realized that I wasn't alone. Somehow, too many women have fallen into the belief that the wife always knows best. There's even a phrase to reinforce it. Happy wife, happy life. That doesn't leave a lot of room for his opinions, does it? It's an easy stereotype to buy into. Look at the media. Movies, TV, advertisements. They're all filled with images of hapless husbands and clever wives. He can't cook. He can't take care of the kids. If you send him out to get 3 things, he'll come back with 2, and they'll both be wrong. We see it again and again. And I'm glad they mentioned this because, again, many times as a guy, you say, come on, you're not being fair. You're not representing men in their whole light. And we see it many times, even from young women today, of like men are good for one thing. And that's, having a little of intimacy fun with and then tossing them out and getting them out. Because other than that, they're worthless. There are so many posts of this on social media now. Or you look at the OnlyFans debacle. And I actually have a story I'm going to do about OnlyFans, another one, where guys are spending hundreds or thousands of dollars on these women, and the women, it's not only that they don't appreciate it, it's that they actually dislike these guys. And yes, the guys are not doing themselves any favors, but the point is that would be like you guys that sent me in a donation of, $3 or $5 or something in on PayPal or to my locals account, and me being like, idiot, I can't believe they donate to me. That's the mentality behind this. Now, you guys, I actually appreciate doing that. I'm not saying that, but But that's the kind of gratitude that we get. And men are supposed to put up with this. And when all of a sudden you snap or you fight back or you argue, well, you're called names and they say that you don't like women or you're this or you're that. When the truth is, look, I'm just standing up for myself. I'm not being treated fairly here. So I'm going to scroll down here a bit further, jump over a little more. Did my husband do the same to me? Just as I'm sure there are untold numbers of women who don't ever do this kind of thing to their husbands, I'm sure there are men who do it too to their wives, but I don't think of it as a typical male characteristic. As I sat and thought about it, I realized my husband didn't display the same behavior towards me. I even thought about some of the times I really did make mistakes. The time I backed into the gate and scratched the car. He never said a word about it. The time I was making dinner, got distracted by a call from my mom, and it burned to cinders. He just said, "We can just order a pizza." From the time I tried to put new patio furniture together and left his good tools out in the rain, "Accidents happen," was his only response. I think this comes down to, this sounds like a guy that knows how to fix things. He understands the ways of the world. He's confident. He's probably a well-adjusted individual. And I've seen the same thing happen in my family. It happened one time. My mom, the eye sensor or the sensor for an automatic garage door is at the floor level. Well, my mother had left the car where the trunk and the very back bumper were hanging underneath the door drop for the automatic garage, but the eye went underneath it. So the eye didn't think there was anything in the way. The thing came down and it scraped the bumper and took off all the paint and really banged up the bumper pretty bad. My dad came out and he looked at it and he said, "Well, that's beyond me fixing, because if I paint that, it's going to look awful, so we'll take it in and get it sprayed." Cost about $300. And my mom said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." Dad's like, "Yeah, accidents happen." That's kind of how my family's been, and that's how I was raised. So it seems that he's raised the same way, because here's the thing. What does getting upset fix? "Oh my gosh, you ruined the pizza. Let me yell at you," or ruined dinner because you got distracted. "Let me yell at you for 20 minutes. Now, at the end of the 20 minutes, do you feel better for venting? Maybe. Does she feel better? No. Or does he feel better, whatever way? No. Is the dinner fixed magically? No. So nothing's been resolved. And that's all. Sometimes why I give you guys a little bit of pressure, because when it's like, and you rage against the machine, maybe it feels good to vent, but we're not solving any problems here. And it's not to say that there's anything wrong with that, but it's always best, in my opinion, to just let it slide off. Let it slide off you. You don't get any wrinkles. You don't get extra gray hair from the stress. You don't lose your hair from stress, and you don't worry about something you can't change. And it sounds like that's the way this guy was. It's just, it is what it is. She says, "I shuddered to think what I would have said had the shoe been on the other foot and he'd made those same mistakes. So is he just a better person than me?" Yes. "Why doesn't he bite my head off when I don't do things the way he likes? I'd be a fool to think it doesn't happen. Yet I don't remember him ever calling me out. It doesn't seem he's as intent in changing the way I do things. But why?" And then she goes through and basically says he's not concerned about the little things the way she is. And she comes to the conclusion, the bottom line in all this is that I chose my man as my partner. He's not my servant. He's not my He's not my employee. He's not my child. I didn't think he was stupid when I married him. Otherwise, I wouldn't have. He doesn't need to be reprimanded by me, and I don't, just because I don't like the way he does some things. In my case, it's my husband of 12 years I'm talking about, 12 plus years I'm talking about. The same man who thanklessly changed my car tire in the rain, the guy who taught our kids to ride bikes, the person who stayed with me at the hospital all night when my mom was sick, the man who has always worked hard to make a decent living and support his family. And she goes in here, and again, I'm not going to read it down, but she goes through and says many nice things about it. And she said, I was wrong, and I see what I'm doing. And hey, ladies, just remember the hamburger meat incident and don't go down this path. The problem is today, I think, that as easy as it is to meet new people, it's, you pick up a phone and it's just a swipe away to find somebody new. I think today when people get to this point of he doesn't respect me, he doesn't understand me, even if it's not truthful, even if that's just a perception, that's when most of the time it's off in another room, swiping, the spouse has gone to bed, swiping, starting to talk, starting to chat, starting to send some pictures, and then the hookup happens, and then things start to fall apart. So I will leave it there. We'll keep it nice and simple. Guys, if you'd like to support my work, links are below as always. And if you have, thank you very much. And the best way you can support me is like, comment, share, subscribe. Guys, I will leave it there. This is Better Bachelor. I'm Joker. And remember, she may be harsh on this guy. I think he's a good man. I think he doesn't take too much too heavily. And I think that's a good lesson for all of us too, is that if we get in a relationship where we're not being treated right or treated well, we need to have that conversation. And if there isn't a resolution to it, it's time to leave. Or in many cases, I think some of us have had these relationships. They went so poorly and they went on long enough that a lot of guys have just said, I'm good. I don't think I want to try this again.